What's going on, my fellow guitarists? My name is Andrew, and this is Andrew Rocks On. Today we'll be learning three chords that are some of the most important and that you'll be using throughout the entire lifetime of your guitar career. C, G, and D. As you're probably aware if you've watched my previous two chord category videos, I've already taught C and G. However, there will be annotations on screen to any of the chords that you need to learn, and when clicked they'll take you right to the time marker when those chords are being taught. Of course, if you're here to learn all three chords, sit back and let the video play out in its entirety. Alright, let's zoom in and take a closer look at our chords. If you haven't watched any of my other videos, you might not be filled in on what a chord diagram is. If you have and you want to skip right to the chords, there'll be an annotation on screen to skip when the chords are being taught. Now, a chord diagram is a tool guitarists use to identify the strings and notes that are being played to make a chord. The chord diagram on screen is probably right about here. As you can see on the chord diagram, this is what a C chord looks like. Each bar on the diagram is called a fret. So on the guitar, this is the first fret, the second fret, the third fret, the fourth fret, and so on. And the strings order from bottom to top. So the first string is on the bottom of the fretboard, and the sixth string is on the top. The X's and O's on a chord diagram tell us which strings to play and which strings to miss. So with this C chord diagram, you see that we only miss the sixth string or the low E as it is indicated by an X. This means the rest of the strings are played as they're indicated by O's. Okay, now onto the chords. So this is the full C chord, and here's what it sounds like. So as you see on the chord diagram, C is played with your first finger on this first fret, this one, on the second string of the B string. So we're going to count 1, 2, the second string. Your second finger goes on the second fret on the fourth string of the D string. 1, 2, 3, 4. Lastly, your third finger goes on the third fret, fifth string, or the A string. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So as we see on the diagram, there's an X on the sixth string. This means we don't play it. Therefore, we strum from the fifth string down. That's the C chord. To check you have a nice sound from your chords, you have to strum each string individually and see if they ring like this. If they buzz like this, there could be a number of reasons. Firstly, you may not be using the tips of your fingers. Also, check if a string is muted as a result of another finger touching it by accident. Thirdly, ensure your fingers are as close to the next fret as possible. If it's further back, you might get a muted sound. On your C chord, there may be a number of problems. Firstly, with the fifth string, your third finger may be back too far on the third fret. Like this, may create a muted sound. So make sure your third finger is nice and close as possible to the next fret. For the fourth string, it may be that you're using the flat of your finger to play your fifth string there with your third finger, so make sure your third finger is upright and you're using the tip so it doesn't block the fourth string. Also, you may have your second finger too far back on the fret and it might create a muted sound, so just make sure it's up and as close to the next fret as possible. With the third string, it may be muted because you're accidentally touching it with your second finger, so just make sure your second finger is upright and it's not touching any other strings. Or also, your first finger may be nudging up against this third string, which may be causing it to buzz. So just make sure your first finger is down on that string nicely. With your second string, it may be because your first finger is too far back on the fret, so just make sure it's moved as close to the next fret as possible, and it should be okay. Lastly, with the first string, it should be nice. Otherwise, it may be because your first finger is touching accidentally touching the first string, so you may be getting a muted sound, so just make sure your finger's upright and you should have a nice C. Now, the G chord. This is what it looks like, and this is what it sounds like. So as we see on the chord diagram, G is played with your second finger on the second fret, on the 5th string, or the 8th string. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Your third finger goes on the 3rd fret on the 6th string, or the low E. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Lastly, your pinky or your 4th finger goes on the 3rd fret, 1st string, or high E. With the G chord, we strum all the strings as we see there isn't any X's on the chord diagram. That's the G chord. Like I said with the C chord, strum each string individually to make sure your chord rings and sounds good. Ensure you're using the tips of your fingers and putting them as close to the next fret as possible. Also, make sure none of the flats of your fingers are touching any of the other strings. So with your G chord, there could be a number of problems. Again, with your 6th string, it may be because your finger is too far back on the fret, so make sure it's nice and as close to the fret as possible. Also, your second finger, could be nudging up against that 6th string and muting it. So you just want to have it, you want to make sure your second finger is nice and applied onto that 5th string well. With your 5th string, it could be muted because your 3rd finger is you're using the flat of your 3rd finger to hit this 6th string, so make sure you're using the tip and it's upright. You shouldn't have a problem. Also, your finger could be too back too far on the fret, which may cause it to buzz, although this is unlikely because it's kind of awkward to do that chord shape with your finger further back. So it's up there, it should be nice. With the 4th string, it could be muted because you're using the flats of your second finger, and it may be muted, so just make sure your second finger is upright. It should be fine. With your third string, it shouldn't be a problem unless you are leaning your fingers on the fretboard quite far. That may be causing the mute, but normally it should sound fine. With your second finger, your pinky, with your 2nd string, your pinky could be nudging up on it, causing it to buzz. So just make sure your pinky is upright there, and your 2nd string should sound fine. With your 1st string, it may be because your pinky is too far back on the fret, it's causing it to buzz, so just make sure it's far up and you should have a nice G. Now, this is the D chord, the newest chord I'll be teaching. This is what it looks like, and this is what it sounds like. If we take a look at the chord diagram, it says we place our 1st finger on the 2nd fret and on the 3rd string. So 1, 2, 3. Then we place our 2nd finger on the 2nd fret, the same fret as our 1st finger, and on the 1st string. And finally, our 3rd finger goes on the 3rd fret and on the 2nd string. So 1, 2. With the D chord, we strum down from the 4th string, as the 5th and 6th are indicated by X's on the chord diagram. A good way I like to remember the chord is when you're looking at the fret front on, like the camera's position now, the chords looks like an inverted letter D. At least that's how I remembered it when I was learning guitar. So that's the D chord. Like I said with the C and G chords, strum each string individually to make sure your chord rings and sounds good. Ensure you're using the tips of your fingers and putting them as close to the next fret as possible. Also, make sure none of the flats of your fingers are touching any of the other strings. Okay, let's go over this D chord. So firstly, your 4th string could be muted as your 1st finger is nudging up and touching. We don't want that, so just make sure your 1st finger is on that 3rd string, nice, and your 4th string should sound good. With your 3rd string, it could be because your finger is too far back, so you may be getting a buzzing sound. Just make sure it's as far up to the next fret as possible, and it should be fine. Also, your 3rd finger here could be nudging up on this 3rd string and making it buzz. So just make sure it's nice and on that 2nd string now. Alright, with your 2nd string, it could be a number of reasons. Either your 1st or 3rd finger could be nudging up on the second string, which will make it buzz. So just make sure you're using the tips of your fingers with these two, and you should be fine with that. Also, it may be because your third finger is too far back. So just make sure it is nice and far up on that third fret. Should have a nice sounding second string. With the first string, firstly, you could be using the flat of your finger, your flat of your third finger, and that is going and muting the first string. Also, another reason is your second finger could be too far back on the fret, causing it to buzz. However, that's unlikely because it's kind of awkward shape for that chord. So you just want everything to be as far up on their fret as possible, and you should have a nice sounding D chord. So that is it for this chord lesson. Remember to practice your chords. Ensure your chord sounds clean and doesn't buzz. Another thing is to practice the chord change between C, G, and D, as the transitions between chords are always the hardest part for beginners. Like I said in the last chord video, make sure your thumb is placed behind the neck, as this is necessary to build muscles later used for bar chords. Just trust me on this one. Leave your thumb behind the fretboard rather than on top. In the description of this video or in the playlist you're currently watching, there will be songs that I'm going to teach you with the chords you just learned. Before you try to play those songs, practice your chord changes, as they are essential to play the songs at the speed they're intended to be played at. If you enjoyed this chord lesson, leave a like, and please leave your comments and criticisms down in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Until next time, guys. Peace. Wanna see a horse I ride. I just wanna lay it. I feel like I'm knocking on heaven's door.